Picture this: the dazzling lights of Paris, the pounding rhythm of a Dior runway show, and then appearing amidst a sea of familiar Western faces, a striking presence from the East. Her porcelain skin, sharp eyes, and commanding walk seemed to slice through the air like a blade of elegance. That was Sui He, also known as haute, the Chinese model who stunned the fashion world the very first time she stepped onto an international stage. In an industry long dominated by Eurocentric ideals of beauty, her arrival was nothing short of revolutionary. From the quiet streets of Zhejiang to the grand catwalks of Chanel, Givenchy, Ralph Lauren, and even the glittering stage of the Victoria's Secret fashion show, Sui He's ascent was more than a personal triumph. It was a historical milestone for Asian representation in high fashion. Yet behind the blinding camera flashes and thunderous applause lay a more fragile truth. Sui He's story was not merely one of effortless grace, it was also a journey through the shadows, a reminder that fashion, for all its allure, has a darker undercurrent. The dark side of fashion is where dreams collide with exhaustion, where beauty is both celebrated and consumed. Sui He's rise embodies both sides of this paradox. She was celebrated as the icy muse of global runways, but beneath the surface lived a young woman torn between ambition and fragility. Her journey reminds us of the truth that even legends, even those standing beside the great 90-second supermodels, can find themselves dancing on the knife's edge between glory and oblivion. Sui He was born in 1989-inch Ningbo, a coastal city in Zhejiang, China. Far removed from the glitter of the fashion capitals she would later conquer, her childhood unfolded among narrow streets, salty sea breezes, and the modest rhythm of a traditional working-class family. Both of her parents were factory workers who valued discipline, thrift, and security. They envisioned their daughter in a respectable, stable career, perhaps as a teacher or a government employee, certainly not on a runway halfway across the world. Even as a child, however, Sui He stood out. Her unusually tall frame towered over her classmates. During school ceremonies, she was always placed in the back row, her long black hair swaying in the wind, her gentle yet proud eyes hinting at something unspoken. But this difference was not always celebrated. In fact, her height and lanky figure often made her the target of jokes. Some called her awkward, others thought she looked like a misfit. For a time, young Sui He wondered if her uniqueness was more of a curse than a gift. At home, her mother's voice carried constant reminders. A girl should live simply, without fanciful dreams. It was a warning meant to shield her daughter from disappointment. Yet ironically, those very restrictions became the soil from which her secret passion grew. In the corners of her small room, Sui He devoured old-fashioned magazines, staring at images of Naomi Campbell, Kate Moss, and Gisele Bündchen. They were distant, untouchable icons, yet they awakened a burning question. Why couldn't a girl like her ever shine like that? As a teenager, she began experimenting in secret. Before the mirror, she practiced the regal walks she saw on television, transforming her mother's bedsheets into improvised gowns. It was a private theater, a secret rebellion against conformity. But outside, in early 2002 China, modeling was still considered an unstable, even scandalous path for a young woman. Her dreams remained tucked away like fragile glass. What set Sui He apart was her inner steel. She absorbed every taunt, every dismissive glance, and converted them into fuel. If classmates saw her as too tall or too strange, she carried within her the quiet certainty that one day those very traits would become her power. While the world was blind to it, she knew her difference was her destiny. At 17, that hidden energy finally found an opening. A chance encounter with opportunity would soon carry her far beyond Ningbo, setting her on a path toward the global stage, a path that would eventually thrust her into the same universe once reserved for the 90-second supermodels and force her to confront both the dazzling triumphs and the inevitable shadows of the dark side of fashion. Sui He's entry into modeling did not begin with a glamorous discovery in a shopping mall or a photographer's chance encounter. Instead, it started with a bold decision by a 17-year-old girl desperate to prove that her differences were not flaws, but strengths. In 2006, she signed up for a local modeling competition, a move her parents dismissed as reckless, even foolish. To them, it was a frivolous distraction that would lead nowhere. To her, it was the only chance to test whether her uniqueness had value. On stage, wearing a simple dress and minimal makeup, Sui He's tall frame and piercing gaze stood out. Her steps were hesitant but resolute, her heart pounding as if the entire world was watching. The catwalk was nothing more than a makeshift platform in a community hall, yet for Sui He it felt like destiny. The applause was modest, but inside she felt a revelation. This was where she belonged. The results stunned even her doubters. Sui He advanced through the competition and earned one of the top prizes. While not the national champion, her performance caught the eye of talent scouts. A Beijing-based agency saw potential in her natural poise and icy beauty qualities that set her apart from the softer, more traditional look of Chinese models at the time. Her family resisted. Her father worried about instability. Her mother feared the temptations of a harsh industry. But Sui He's resolve was unwavering. "If I don't try, I'll regret it for the rest of my life," she told them. Those words carried the weight of maturity beyond her years, and eventually, her determination won out. In Beijing, she moved into a cramped dormitory with other aspiring models, each chasing the same fragile dream. Days began with endless casting calls, where hundreds of hopefuls lined up in the freezing cold clutching portfolios with nothing more than a few amateur photos. Rejection was routine. Sometimes she was dismissed without even stepping into the room. She was told she was too Asian or too expressionless. Each rejection cut deep, but she refused to break. Quietly, she turned every no into a reason to keep going. Then came the turning point. At a major Beijing casting, scouts were captivated by her fluid walk and enigmatic stare. She was chosen for a significant runway show, a breakthrough moment that validated years of persistence. For the first time, she felt the power of transformation. The awkward, ridiculed girl from Ningbo was now commanding a stage under blinding lights. That show marked the beginning of a journey that would eventually propel her far beyond China's borders. It was the first domino to fall in a chain reaction leading to Paris, New York, and Milan. From that moment on, Sui He was no longer simply chasing a dream, she was building a destiny, one that would align her with the iconic 90-second Supermodels, while also forcing her to confront the ruthless realities hidden within the dark side of fashion. 2011 was the year everything changed. At just 22 years old, Sui He was chosen to open Givenchy's Haute Couture Spring/Summer show in Paris, a first for any Asian model in the storied history of the fashion house. As the lights dimmed and the music surged, she stepped out in a sculptural gown, her 1.79-meter frame cutting a striking silhouette across the runway. Her expression was unreadable, cold yet magnetic. For a moment, the audience fell silent, and then the room erupted into thunderous applause. That night, Sui He was no longer simply a rising model. She was an icon. From there, the doors swung wide open. Chanel, Dior, Ralph Lauren, Alexander McQueen, and the legendary Karl Lagerfeld himself beckoned her onto their runways. In 2012, she reached a new milestone, walking in the Victoria's Secret fashion show, side by side with some of the world's most celebrated names: Adriana Lima, Alessandra Ambrosio, Miranda Kerr. For many, seeing a Chinese face among the glittering angels was both groundbreaking and unforgettable. What made Sui He unforgettable wasn't just her looks. Photographers often remarked that she had eyes that told stories, a gaze that seemed to carry layers of mystery, detachment, and allure. On the covers of Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and Elle, She wasn't just a model, she was a statement, proof that Asian beauty could not only compete with Western standards, but redefine them. During these golden years, she became a fixture at every fashion week, from New York to Milan to Paris. It wasn't unusual for her to walk 4 or 5 shows in a single day, slipping into impossible heels and gliding across runways as if fatigue were a foreign word. Critics hailed her as the face of a new generation of Asian models, disciplined, captivating, and undeniably professional. And yet, for all her visibility, she remained an enigma. While others flocked to after-parties and fed gossip columns with scandal, Sui He chose silence. She avoided the drama, letting her work speak for itself. It was this quiet defiance that set her apart, elevating her image beyond the fleeting fame that consumed so many of her peers. From a ridiculed teenager who once felt out of place, she had transformed into a global star. Her walk was no longer just a personal triumph, it was a cultural breakthrough. For every young Asian aspiring to model, she was living proof that barriers could be shattered. At her peak, Sui He was not just part of the spectacle, she was the spectacle. But in fashion, even the brightest flames are fragile. The world that once embraced her with open arms would soon remind her of its cruel duality. For every accolade, there exists a shadow. And as Sui He rose higher, she was unknowingly stepping closer to the darker truths hidden deep within the dark side of fashion, truths that even the great 90-second supermodels had once encountered. In an industry where thousands of beautiful faces rise and vanish every season, Sui He proved why she was more than just another model, why she became an icon. Her difference did not lie solely in glamorous contracts or dazzling runways, but in the bold choices she made and the principles she refused to compromise. From her earliest days on the international stage, Sui He was pressured to westernize her image. Some managers suggested she cut her hair, adopt heavier makeup, or even undergo cosmetic procedures to fit global beauty ideals. But she refused. She insisted on keeping her natural features, her sharp eyes, her serene expression, her untouched nose. It was a deliberate stance to present Asian beauty as it truly was, not diluted to mimic Western standards. That decision made her more than a model, it made her a cultural symbol. Across China, Japan, and Korea, young women looked at her Vogue and Elle covers and felt pride. Here was proof that their beauty had a rightful place on the world stage. In an interview, she once said, "I don't want to be anyone's version of perfect. I want the world to see me as I am." Those words resonated deeply, especially in an industry where so many lose themselves to conformity. She also chose integrity over easy fame. Sui He turned down lucrative contracts when she felt the product demeaned women or cheapened her image. In a business where models were often treated as disposable commodities, her refusal to bend became an act of rebellion. At first, it puzzled people. Some whispered she was difficult, others said she was foolish. But as the years passed, her resistance only elevated her reputation. She became known as a model who valued self-respect above everything else. Photographers and designers spoke of her presence with awe. When Sui He walks into a studio, one once remarked, "The air shifts." She didn't need to force a smile or exaggerate her poses. A single glance, a tilt of her head, a measured step was enough to electrify the frame. They called it the Sui He effect, a kind of magic that could not be learned, only radiated from within. At a time when many models relied on scandal or social media antics to stay relevant, Sui He chose silence. She kept her private life private, never chasing tabloids or fueling controversy. Instead, she let her craft speak louder than any headline. It was this restraint that gave her an aura of mystery, setting her apart as the icy muse, a woman untouchable, ethereal, and unforgettable. Her legacy during this period was not simply about walking runways, it was about rewriting what it meant to be a supermodel, not just a face, but a force. Just like the great 90-second supermodels, she embodied an individuality that transcended trends. And in her calm defiance, she reminded the world that sometimes the most powerful statement is saying no, even in the glittering chaos of the dark side of fashion. At the height of her fame, when it seemed her place in fashion was unshakable, Sui He began to fade from the spotlight. After 2015, her appearances on international runways grew increasingly rare. Whispers circulated. Some claimed she was pushed aside by the endless wave of younger, fresher faces. Others speculated she had chosen to retreat, exhausted by years of relentless pressure. The truth was more complex. Years of non-stop schedules had taken a toll. Behind the glittering runways were nights of missed meals, rushed changes, and only a few hours of restless sleep. To maintain an almost impossible physique slim but radiant required sacrifices few outsiders could imagine. The toll was physical, but also deeply psychological. The international press, already harsh toward Asian models, didn't make it easier. One publication bluntly asked, "Does high fashion really need another Asian face?" Such words were more than criticism. They were daggers aimed at a woman who had devoted her youth to conquering an industry that had never fully embraced her. Rumors swirled back in China as well. On social media, people whispered about alleged failed cosmetic surgeries, suggesting this was why she no longer appeared in public. The rumors were never confirmed, but they still cast a shadow over her carefully built image. Fans were left confused, while the global press remained eerily silent, an ominous silence that seemed to signal her replaceability. But perhaps the most difficult battle was loneliness. In one rare interview, Sui He confessed, "Sometimes I feel like a ghost, walking among people, but belonging nowhere." Behind the icy exterior that had mesmerized the fashion world was a soul quietly fracturing. Gradually, her name slipped from the rosters of major fashion weeks. No more opening shows for couture legends, no more magazine covers released in rapid succession. Instead, her projects grew smaller, more private. On Instagram, the once dazzling updates dwindled to occasional snapshots, mundane moments of daily life that only deepened the mystery. Fans began asking the same haunting question: had the light truly gone out? Sui He's disappearance wasn't marked by a spectacular scandal or a headline-making fall from grace. Instead, it was a quiet erosion, the slow withdrawal of a woman too drained to keep dancing in the spotlight. Yet in that silence lay another kind of power. Her retreat transformed her story into a haunting riddle, an unfinished chapter that still lingers in the minds of those who witnessed her rise. Her fate reflected an age-old truth. In fashion, even brilliance can be fleeting. For every triumph there exists a cost, a shadow. And Sui He, like the great 90-second supermodels before her, was forced to confront that relentless cycle. She had touched the stars, but she had also walked straight into the dark side of fashion. Sui He's silence on the grandest runways did not erase her legacy. On the contrary, her impact remains undeniable. She was the first Chinese model to open a haute couture show in Paris, one of the few Asian faces to stride the stage of the Victoria's Secret fashion show, and a living testament that Eastern beauty could shine on the global stage without bowing to Western conformity. Her greatest legacy lies in the inspiration she gave to younger generations. For every aspiring model across Asia, her journey proved that their uniqueness was not something to hide, but something to celebrate. By refusing to erase her identity, she showed that in an industry perpetually chasing novelty, authenticity is the most powerful weapon. Today, when the world looks back on her story, opinions may differ. Some argue she never fully reached her potential. Others say her retreat was premature. Yet one truth stands firm. She carved out a chapter in fashion history that cannot be ignored. She proved that a girl from Ningbo could ascend to global icon status, reshaping what was possible for those who would follow. And so, her story lingers like an open question. Perhaps she was never truly forgotten. Perhaps we simply stopped remembering. If Sui He were to step onto the stage today into a world more eager than ever to embrace diversity and authenticity, would her light burn even brighter? Would she stand not only among, but beyond the great 90-second supermodels, defying once again the fleeting shadows of the dark side of fashion?